Hello, everyone, and happy Friday. It's time for the Security Token Show. We're your hosts. I'm Herwig, and this is Kyle, as always, my co-host. And we have got a great show for you today. It's Art Basel Week in Miami. There's been tons happening in the space, great news, updates, RW Foundation news, as well as interviews and lots of great stuff. Before we dive right into it, Kyle, how you doing, buddy?
Herwig, I am doing great. The city is alight and alive this week, and that is wonderful. Bitcoin hit 100K, so everybody is buzzing. But there does seem to be an additional higher level of solidness, and I think substance is the word I'm looking for, in a lot of the innovation going on these days. I think that that's just something really special.
I'm super pumped about it. I'm even more pumped to try to sneak into Michael Saylor's 100K Bitcoin party since he lives here in Miami Beach.
What a crasher style.
We'll be welcomed with open arms. What are you talking about, Kyle? So that's super exciting. Let's dive into the show. But first, if you're listening, if you like the show, please give us a like, give us a subscribe. If you haven't, share this show with someone that you know would like it. It really helps out. But let's get into the market movements. And this week on the show, we have back our regular contributor, Nico Pantelis. He's a partner at Blue Bay Ventures. If you're not familiar with them, they are one of the leading RWA-focused venture funds in the space. Happily, we can say they're also investors in STM. Nico, coming from Dubai, how you doing this week?
Gentlemen. Happy 100K, guys.
Happy 100K.
It finally happened. Yes. Or should we say 0.1 million?
That's right.
Yes.
Now.
No one ever says 0.001 billion. Why?
You hear it here first, people?
No, that's right.
Bitcoin is broken 0.0001 billion.
No, it's this is fantastic, guys. This is absolutely a major hurdle that the market has jumped over. And if we dive right into it, I didn't sense the hype, the enthusiasm, I didn't see any mainstream media covering all day. Nothing of that. No journal, no papers, newspapers, nothing. I didn't see almost anything except maybe an item on CNBC and maybe an item on Bloomberg. And that's about it, which is crazy in my opinion.
I think, I would love to hear where you guys are thinking on that notion, Nico, because many people sort of say, oh, this is off of the SEC chair pick, right? Which is Paul Atkins that we saw get nominated and confirmed by Trump. But I don't see the same retail reaction that you're talking about, Nico, to the point where maybe this is all just, again, the concept of there are nation states and large players playing the game theory of nation states buying these Bitcoin. And perhaps this is all supply related, not necessarily the hype of a new SEC chair. What do you guys think?
This is exactly it, Herwig. I think the desks are drying up with available Bitcoin. The amount that MicroStrategy and the likes have been buying these Bitcoins, that these ETFs have been soaking up the market of all these Bitcoins, which are in these OTC desks, it's impressive. And prices should almost explode, in my opinion, if this keeps going. What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. We saw Bitcoin hit 100K and then it immediately dipped. I think it's right now, as of today, at like 98,000, something like that. So we do seem to see some interesting stuff there. I've got some resistance at like 81 and then maybe 68 from what I see in terms of price floors. I don't know. I feel like it's got another drawdown in it. I don't know when, I don't know where, but there's so much hype and optimism in the market. It just seems like that's when the rug gets pulled out. But maybe I'm just scarred as like just a veteran of this industry. That every time things are good, it just can't be too good. Otherwise, we get screwed. So I'm interested to see what happens over the next couple of months.
I hear some PTSD going on there.
I don't think that's forever, but I wouldn't be shocked if there was a small leg down before we have another one higher.
Shell shocked specifically. So, Kyle, I think that's an interesting take as well. Going on what I was saying, right? We know also that recently David Sachs was nominated as crypto czar for the White House, which I think is also a big deal. We obviously know the new chair, which was an advisor to Securitize, obviously not anymore to remove that conflict, but we know that Paul is well aware of tokenization as a libertarian, et cetera. We can probably have a pretty good assumption of how he's going to treat the office, but there's not much more we can really glean from that, right? So we'll have to wait to see some announcements from him. But what do you think about this David Sachs pick?
It's actually really funny. I was last night at an Art Basel evening, actually focused on some nonprofit work I've been doing recently here in the city. And I look up from my meal and make face-to-face contact with David Sachs. It was about 1 hour after he was confirmed in the news. And I was looking over and I'm like, it kind of looks like him. But what confirmed it to me was that he spent about an hour only on his phone, I'm sure getting blown up by everyone around the world as he's responding to millions of messages. I think this is a fascinating pick. Obviously, he was a big lead donor and the Trump campaign, was incredibly outspoken. So it certainly makes sense that he's rewarded for a lot of that loyalty. Hopefully, real-world asset tokenization is going to be his focus. He's done the Silicon Valley game for a long time. I did have a chance to speak with him very briefly and wasn't able to glean directly on any of his standings there, but made sure to shout out the tokenization space as a place that's supporting him. So I think it's certainly one that you'd expect he would be open-minded, considering he's been so successful in tech innovation.
I actually think he invested in now defunct Harbor back in the day, if I recall correctly. But I might be wrong on that. So maybe I'm wrong, but that's just why it's potentially ringing a bell. But maybe I'm wrong. But we also have to recognize that he is also the AI czar. So here's hoping that he doesn't split his efforts. In my opinion, you probably need a czar for each. They're both that important, in my opinion. And to find yourself split between those two massive undertakings means that both are, in my opinion, going to get a disservice in terms of the focus, but hopefully not. Hopefully it's all policy and setting the right tone within the White House for AI and crypto. But there's one last appointment that I would love to get your opinions on, which is CFTC chair. Now, the digital chamber head, Perianne, is actually rumored to potentially take on that role. Not sure if that's the definite. I think there's probably potentially some other picks in the air, but any interest or any insights, I should say, worth sharing around this pick, guys?
I'm from Europe, guys. I listened to the All In podcast a long time already, but I don't have any insights into this lady. No.
Yeah, her track record seems to be that she's been active in building business co-ops and nonprofits with some of the largest tech companies. So certainly seems like she has the relationships there. Again, I'm not exactly sure what her positions have been on CFTC stuff. So we can maybe do a deep dive on some of those things once it's more clear what that landscape looks like.
I think it's safe to say that we can, know that she definitely has the right crypto experience, right? When it comes to digital assets, she is certainly more than qualified. It's just I wonder how the rest of the non-crypto commodities industry would feel about a pick like that. Because to your point, I'm not so sure what other experience she has. Though maybe she has a lot. Maybe that makes her a really great general pick all around. So let's see what happens.
I want to say something about David Sachs, if I may, Herwig, which is kind of important in regards to the tokenization. David Sachs, by the way, he's not the only one pulling. He's, of course, the face of this new czar position. But behind him is Shamat Palihapitiya, which is an OG crypto investor. I think he has been building his BTC stack ever since Mt. Gox was set up back in those days in 2013. So he goes way back. So they're very invested. I think David Sachs is invested in the Solana ecosystem. I think his fund has a position in Hive Mapper, I think is like the mapping DeepIn application over there. But what is very important for these two guys, these are VCs at their core. And the real problem for VCs, especially in Silicon Valley in the last years, has been liquidity. That sounds strange, but it is. I've been listening to many VCs, and they're always complaining about.
Of course, they are.
Why do we have to wait for IPOs, guys? This is ridiculous. And if you insert tokenization, this whole problem solves instantly.
That's true.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, why David Sachs is at this position.
Private
tokenization is coming.
Private companies continue to stay private longer. Some VC funds have thrown in like 1-2 year extensions, but it's not enough. You've got a finite term to return money, and if these companies IPO, you're stuck.
Yeah, but their LPs have been complaining for years.
Of course.
Get me some liquidity, get me some piece of the pie. And there's just nothing, It's been a downward trend ever since 2022, I think, 21, 22. The whole market came crashing down. And so this is a big problem. And so this will solve a lot for these guys.
If we can get forces like Michael Saylor pushing to delist because of naked short selling, and we can get the other side where you have VCs like, David Sachs and Chamath pushing their pre-IPO companies on the tokenized markets. Now you've got two forces. We're saying instead of go to IPOs, go to tokens. Instead of being IPO'd, go to tokens. That's a beautiful, beautiful image.
Yeah. And the stock markets have been shrinking for years. The amount of shares traded, it's been shrinking completely, and delistings and mergers and nothing coming back online. It's a big problem. And tokenization can blossom this complete industry again. So I'm very excited that David is taking this position. Yes.
Yeah, that might be just as big or bigger than the SEC chair. We'll see. Moving on, we have a big market movement, if you will, a shakeup in the space. We've known for quite some time. I think it took them less than 40 days or around that time for BUIDL to become the largest tokenized fund in the world, obviously backed by treasuries or a variety of different things in the case of BUIDL, but a typical money market fund-like structure. And there have been other players, right? We saw Franklin Templeton kind of going neck and neck all this time, trying to beat them out. We know Ondo is kind of backed into BUIDL itself, so it's hard for kind of Ondo to outgrow BUIDL, but we know that they're the largest supplier of that product. But there's one more player that kind of goes under the radar. They're not retail. They're not as sort of in your face because they're not backed with the giant asset manager's product, $1 trillion asset manager behind them. Yet it has still managed to take the crown. So this week we saw Hashnote, USYC token officially become the largest tokenized fund product in the world. So that's a big deal. Any thoughts on this, guys? I'm sure you're wondering where it's coming from.
Nico,
this is big, guys. This is what we need, by the way, for this industry. This is pouring some gasoline on this fire. Getting things heat up. I would say the gloves are off for Larry and his crew. Let's pony up some billions here and there in these tokenized assets. Let's go. This is big, And this is a big market, of course. Let's not forget this. The crypto market thinks of itself. It's a very important market, but it's a drop in the ocean. It's nothing compared to these players. This is humongous.
We're at 0.005 T when it comes to tokenized money market funds.
Yeah, I remember being surprised at this one for sure. Do we know the underlying source of where a lot of this 589 is coming from Hashnote, Herwig?
So as far as I understand, and hopefully we're going to hear directly from the horse's mouth very soon on the show, but a lot of it is coming from, like the prime brokers and the likes. The demand for collateralization with these products is, I believe, what is, really, driving the demand, which doesn't surprise me at all, right? Institutional collateralization, hand in hand, big numbers. Now you've got the biggest product.
Yeah, well, this is great to see. I think Nico makes a fantastic point. Not only is this a competitive product, which I just think generally is good for markets, but who would have thought that BlackRock would be dethroned in anything these days? It seems like they can't lose and they have no equal. And in this case, they do. And that just goes to show that there are many ways to skin a cat. There's a lot of demand for yield-bearing dollar-based products. And it's nice to see that there are more than just these straight institutional products that are generating significant AUM. If I had to guess, Hashnote is doing something on a bit more of a hybrid side, or certainly a little bit more retail focused, at least relative to what BlackRock is doing. And I think that that's a good thing for the market.
Personally, I'm more excited when it comes to tokenized treasury products, money market funds, liquidity products, as we call them. I'm more excited about on-chain reserves. This needs to be the mainstay theme of 2025. Every stable coin out there should be backing themselves with on-chain products. And that's, to me, the future narrative around this sector, because it's just going to keep growing and growing. And we already know that there's literally 24 or more new money market fund products that are tokenized coming into the market as well. So it's just going to keep growing. Now, what do y'all think about uranium?
Hot topic, especially with AI. These guys are they need more power left and right for these software models, these AI models. So it's a very energy intensive period for the world, let's say it like that. And uranium is like, at this moment, maybe the real only solution out there. We talked about David Sachs and the crew at All In. These guys are very close to these AI models, even invested big chunks of capital of their funds into these models. They know how intense these systems are. And they are begging the governments to open up, to legislate and to get these things open up again. So getting uranium tokenized and getting investors to invest in uranium and getting exposure to the uranium sector is just very good, very good.
I'm bullish on commodities, Herwig. You know that one.
That I do. If you're tokenizing commodities, go reach out to Kyle to learn about Paxum. But uranium, I got to give this shout out, Kyle, to Tony, a longtime listener and follower on the show. I've seen him talking about tokenizing uranium for years now, I think, at this point. This is the news, guys. RWAs, using the Tezos blockchain, is launching a uranium marketplace on chain, of course. So this is a big deal, to Nico's point. I think this is an awesome move. This is a differentiator. It's not just another money market fund or something that, other people are also addressing. This is pretty radical. They've got the licensing. RWAs is one of the most licensed up players in Europe. Obviously they kind of have a lockdown on the UK market of sorts, to the point where I would love to see what kind of demand that this not only brings in natively, but also potentially internationally. If they can, support those investors for uranium, that could be, who knows, that could go crazier than we all imagine, right?
This is going to be such a big industry, guys. This is tokenizing your commodities, like Kyle says, getting these things put in these DeFi tools as collateral, getting yield on your commodities. This is just, a complete new world that is going to open up for investors worldwide. This is such a beautiful thing, guys. That's why we're here, of course, preaching every day this tokenization. It's enormous. Yes.
Totally agree.
Any closing thoughts, Kyle?
Well, look, it's just, commodities trade. I've looked at the stats. Trafigura, one of the largest companies in the world in the trading desks in commodities, made like $238 billion in revenue last year and only $8 billion in profit. their margins there are like 3%, right? So a desk like that, being able to save basis points, nets out to tens or hundreds of millions of dollars and a significant portion of their net profit just by doing a few things differently, let alone if tokenization actually can enable 10, 20, 30% value creation due to some of the other additional benefits. You're potentially talking about significant capital generated into this market through commodities.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it, folks. That's the RWA future that is here today. And in fact, I do want to end this segment on another major European player that I think people should have their eye on, which is 21X. So 21X has been actually building for a long time, 7 or 8 years, I think. But they have finally received their EU licensing, across-the-board coverage there for what is a pretty end-to-end ecosystem that I think uniquely, unlike a lot of other players, still taps into a lot of the traditional finance infrastructure. So it's sort of a hybrid of the two as opposed to, completely its own infrastructure system. So I'm very excited to see what kind of, attraction that is gained for 21X by institutions and a lot of partners. I'm sure very soon we're going to be hearing a lot of news from them now that they can officially list products and start, doing primary and secondary trading in the EU, which we all know, has a lot of focus on it, given MiCA and given a lot of the rules that have been published. Sort of, we expect an unleash of tokenization next year in Europe. So 21X and Archax, I think, are probably going to be some major players in the regulated marketplace side of things. With that, guys, thanks for coming on the show, Nico. And let's keep on going, Kyle. Wow, there's a lot of cool things happening in this space. Loving this episode so far. It's incredible to see the PRs like Hashnote just did. It's exciting to see new token offerings and infrastructure. And obviously now, hopefully the right people in charge of the regulatory and at the White House to help make crypto boom next year. We're already seeing it with the 100K all-time highs. A lot of other tokens hitting all-time highs are getting close to it again. This absolutely tells us there is a large, cycle coming next year. And we believe very much so that real-world assets are going to be a part of that narrative. We already think they are. Crypto natives now finally understand the benefits of RWAs. A lot of the infrastructure has finally positioned itself and built itself to a point where we can bridge into DeFi. And we feel that as we see the largest banks and asset managers coming into this space, building their own technical infrastructure on chain, we don't want to see crypto natives get left behind. We think it's very important to sort of decentralize capital markets in that sense and give the crypto natives a voice, which is why we debuted a couple of weeks ago the RWA Foundation. By the very sound of it, we are developing a community, but also partnering up with the largest players in the space, the biggest marketplaces, the biggest exchange or tokenization engines, L1s, L2s, different parts to the ecosystem to make sure that we can make RWAs thrive. And again, this is only a couple weeks old. So this is a fresh segment on the show. We hope to keep you updated with everything that's happening every week. We have a lot of great partner highlights on our X Twitter account right now. So go follow it at RWA Foundation _. Apparently, a lot of people had already taken up that kind of handle, despite them all having one follower and no activity. But we digress. We're super excited about this. In fact, we have our mascot, Wally. This is Wally right here. In fact, if you see one of these stickers of Wally around Wynwood or around our Basel, if you're in town, give us a shout. Take a picture with it. Let us know. We're happy to meet up, give you some, and keep spreading the word about Wally and this decentralized community that we're trying to build for real world assets. And so every week you're going to hear new updates, exciting updates. It'll be very beneficial to stay in the know and to be one of the first signed up for our X and Telegram. I'll just put it that way. So please tune in, tap in, join the community. We've got almost 1,000 followers on Twitter, hundreds of people in our Telegram. It is an electric and a live conversation. And next week, we may be ready to debut a very special announcement. Maybe it's the release of our white paper or the date, or maybe it's something else entirely. You'll have to tap in. So you can also go to RWAF.xyz to sign up for our newsletter. But please come join in the community. If you're watching this show, you support RWAs, you support a crypto economy that bridges RWAs into DeFi. So come join the decentralized community for RWAs. And with that, let's head on with the rest of the show. Well, Kyle, another great episode of news. A lot of stuff happening in the space, but we've got a special segment now, don't we?
We do. We have what is, as quoted by Forbes, even bigger than their Midas list, their 30 under 30 awards. Even it seems like the Better Business Bureau is calling it the most important award for companies in technology, particularly those in tokenization. Herwig, of course, I'm talking about the Companies of the Year award, which is only given to one company each year for making the biggest, most impactful movements in the security token industry. And of course, Herwig, you can only win that Company of the Year award if you're nominated for that award. And how do they do that?
Well, Kyle, there is only a few episodes left of the year, but for the whole year and every year before that for the Company of the Year, every week you and I, we choose one company that we each felt deserved the spotlight, deserved to be the company of the week, despite everything else that's happening in the space. And that puts them into the running for candidacy of Company of the Year at the end of the day, which we will, of course, announce in the beginning of 2025. So we've had some amazing winners, Securitize, T0, JP Morgan, Republic. Now, Kyle, I'm dying to find out who 2025 is. But as I said, we've got a few last minute nominations left, which means this week we might have a new one. So without further ado, drum roll, which you can't hear. Kyle, tell us, who is your company of the week?
My company of the week this week, Herwig, is someone that David and Goliath was potentially written about thousands of years in the past. And of course, in this case, I'm talking about Hashnote. Hashnote was successfully able to surpass BlackRock in AUM on their tokenized treasury. I did a little bit of digging in here, and it looks like they've been working with Cumberland, one of the largest market makers in the industry, alongside Anchorage Digital and DRW, another huge digital asset manager and trading giant. And it looks like they have been providing some sort of leverage or derivative product that gives up to 40% on these tokenized dollars. And so they have been able to pump their AUM well over $500 million and are currently leading BlackRock in tokenized treasury AUM, which I think is really, really fascinating because this is crypto institutional capital taking on TradFi institutional capital. And in just a short period of time, Hashnote's been able to make a big splash in the market. And for that reason, they win my company of the week.
That's a great choice, Kyle. I think expected to some degree because it is a massive achievement. And I completely agree. It's this concept of collateralization that I think is backing all of this up. The fact that you can now take what normally yields 4+%, as we see with the other products, you can now go and turn that into, I believe, what they call Hashnote Harbor, a 40%, opportunity by posting it as collateral, I think. So in that regard, Kyle, that's massive. That's 10x almost on what you could be earning. So I think that's obviously an aggressive differentiator there between these products. And to your point, that's a lot of big sort of crypto dollars coming in potentially, not necessarily the TradFi folks or even stable coin reserves per se, like we see with many other popular alternatives. So good on Hashnote for building out this sort of whole infrastructure, not relying on other parties to be both the provider and the rails for the payments. And and collateralization and all the other amazing features that they also offer. So love to see another player making a splash, especially since they don't have a $1 trillion asset manager that's, behind them per se from a label perspective. And, let's see where they keep going, Kyle.
Well, that was my winner, Herwig. I couldn't have summarized it better myself. But, of course, there are 2 winners each week. Mine is only half the battle. So please give us more intel on who you chose for your win.
It was a tough one this week, Kyle. I really liked RWAs' uranium play. That's a really hot move. I think that's really cool. We talked about it earlier on the show, how much potential that has. But because we aren't quite talking about the numbers yet or some major players that are trading or participating, let's say, on that platform, I felt like it had to go to somebody that's actually making products happen in the space. And that is going to Chintai, because they announced both PowerDime, which is a $250 million renewable energy asset that's going to be using Chintai's technology. And then they also announced with Premier Art Holdings, a $50 million tokenized fine art fund. And so, that's a big deal. We also know Chintai is not only a member of the RWA Foundation, they also have their own governance token. They definitely have a lot of the appeal of the crypto community. And now they're starting to bring on products. We know they've announced a lot of other deals in the past as well. So it's just exciting to see what I see, which is they're ramping up, Kyle. And this is yet another major player to keep an eye on. They've got all the licensing out of Singapore. They're coming at this, I think, from sort of a global perspective. And again, they kind of have that crypto wins behind them. And for all those reasons, Chintai, you're my company of the week.
Great winner. I've had a chance to meet with their team in multiple different countries across Southeast Asia and I believe in the US. And so I know that they've been working on a lot of these things and been thinking about tokenized assets for many years. Excited to see them continuing to launch new products.
Right on. Well, Kyle, that is our show. Of course, if you liked it, please, everybody, give us that like, give us that subscribe if you're not. Help us out with the algorithm. Make sure you share it. Take a clip, whatever you want. Or if you've got feedback, suggestions, ideas, something you'd like us to cover, give us a shout. We're available on social media. We're all over the place. Let us know. And in the meantime, we got many more videos on our YouTube. We got a ton of RWA news and data at stm.co for you to check out. And of course, make sure you learn about our latest initiative, the RWA Foundation at RWAF.xyz. Follow our X account, tap into our Telegram. I promise you won't regret it. With that, Kyle, any closing thoughts?
Boys, it's been a pleasure. Happy Art Basel, and I'll talk to you next week.
Happy tokenizing, everyone.